Have you ever been in a situation where you were alone and you got hurt and you needed someone to come help you out, but you have no ways of communicating? You're going to want to check this video out. If an emergency arose, how would you get a hold of somebody to come get you for help? Now, here at the homestead, I have almost zero service on my cell phone. I may have one bar if I walk out to the edge of to the end of the road, to the driveway, turn around in 360 degrees, lift one arm up, stick a tongue out, put one leg out, point my toes to north, and I may get a signal. So I had a situation about a month and a half ago where I was working on my 2022 Tacoma, and I was standing on the tailgate while I was working on the rooftop tent. And I thought the tailgate was a little bit longer than where it should have been. And I took a step back and I pretty much fell. And when I fell, I twisted my ankle. And it brought, the pain shot up through my leg, and I was curled up on the ground, and my nearest cell phone was inside of the cabin. And I had to crawl back to the cabin front porch, crawl in there just to get to my cell phone. Now, if that was a situation where it was worse, where I was seriously hurt, there was no way that I could have called anybody. And the worst part of it was during the middle of the week. I think it was a Wednesday or a Thursday. It was about 12 noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The neighbors down here were gone. They were at work. My buddies were out of a city. They were down south, and I had no one to call to come help me. And I noticed my foot started to swell up. But long story short, I was able to get some help, and I was able to get to the emergency room. And luckily I didn't break my ankle. It was just a real bad sprain. And I was in crutches for about a week. But after that incident, I was thinking about what if I was seriously hurt and how would I get a hold of someone? So I'm going to share some of the emergency equipment or communications equipment I have with you that may give you guys some ideas with your application. But these are based on, for me, and what I use not only here at the off-grid property, but when I go disperse camping, or when I go out west, when I'm at 11,000 feet elevation, I'm up on a mountain. And these things do work because there were some situations of some friends I had that had to use some of these. So let's go check it out. First thing I want to talk about are these right here. These are POC radios, or POC, pretty much push to talk. Now, if you remember the old Nextel cell phones back in the mid-90s-ish, where you could push the cell phone button, push to talk, and it was like a walkie-talkie. Well, these radios are similar and almost they mimic what those radios were. But these radios have a little bit more features than just those Nextel radios. Now, how these work is these have a SIM card in here, and it uses cell towers, it bounces off cell towers to communicate between radios. And the cell towers, it pretty much like a cell phone service. Now, you're probably saying, well, if I got one of these and the cell towers go down, what good are these radios? And you are correct. If the cell service towers go down, you can't use the push to talk feature. But here's the cool thing about it. These then shift and revert back to GRMS or FRS function. So you can use this as a regular walkie-talkie. Now, the con to that is they only have about a mile or a mile and a half range. And sometimes if you got trees or mountains in the way, these limit the distance or the capabilities of this radio. Now, when the cell towers are up, these radios pretty much are meant to, or they say it could work worldwide. So if this was in, say, Germany, and I was here in the United States, I would be able to communicate between these two radios using the push to talk function. Now, when you purchase these radios, when I got it, it came with the lifetime free plan, so I don't have to pay for that service. Now, I know that I haven't been able to test it worldwide because I couldn't get this to somebody overseas, but I can tell you that these radios work great nationwide. Now, my buddy in Indiana was able to get a set of these, and I was able to talk to him while he was driving from Indiana to Missouri. Anybody with these radios, you can set up as a group and have a secure line and talk to them wherever they are. Like I said, he was in Indiana driving to Missouri, and I was in Tennessee, and it was like right around the corner. So that's the good thing about these radios, is you can customize it for people that have these radios, and it's a secure line. So I did get some messages of folks saying, well, what good is these radios where I can just use my cell phone? I can just call. Well, a lot of first responders, if you guys know that, or emergency operations, or in case of an emergency, it's easier to talk on a walkie-talkie. That's why you see first responders always using walkie-talkies, because if you had a group of people that you wanted to get the information out or emergency to, you don't have to call each individual person. You can set these radios up where you can talk to everybody at the same time and give them the information. You know, it's a lot easier than texting on your cell phone or calling and say, hey, call, you know, so-and-so, this is what happened. So-and-so fell, he broke his leg, he cut himself. With this feature, you can tell everybody what's going on, and seconds could save lives, you know, but it's a lot easier if you do it with the radio. When I got these, it was unlimited free service for the lifetime of the radio. So that was a plus. But, you know, all these, you know, radios, regardless if you get a POC link, a rapid radio, or any of those radios, they do have their drawbacks, but they do have their positives as well, their pros. So when I go out west, usually if I'm in, you know, going to Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, I will give this to someone back here in Tennessee. I'll give it to my buddy, and that way if I run into trouble, I can always get a hold of them, because when I'm at 11,000 or 12,000 feet, I don't have cell service sometimes up there. So these radios are pretty cool to have. And like I said, they operate on GRMS or FRS frequencies as well. So I can talk to another person that has a radio, but it won't be on a secured line. Now, many of us have these base units in our vehicles. Now, this is the Midland MXT 115 Pro, and this is their new radio that just came out. It's IPX waterproof. I mean, it's got 99 channels. It's got all the bells and whistles. And I'll be doing a video of an install in my Tacoma Sarge in a couple of weeks. These are mounted in your vehicle, so they're permanently. Now, these units are stationary in the vehicle. So once you mount them in there, they're pretty much in there until you remove it. But having a radio like this that I can pick up the weather is pretty cool. But like I said, everything has the pros and cons. The only drawback is if you had to leave your vehicle and you needed to monitor the weather or talk to other people, this has to stay with your vehicle. So this right here is a mobile walkie-talkie, or a mobile GRMS handheld radio. Now this thing is 100% waterproof. You can drop it in a river, lake, or water, and it will still operate. This is Midland's largest as far as powered radio, and I believe it's 5 watts, and that's, I think, the max you can get on a handheld radio. And these are pretty much not cheap. I did purchase what you see that I'm doing with my own money, but having a mobile handheld radio is beneficial, especially if you have to leave the vehicle or walk around. Like if I'm walking around on the property, I could take this with me and just clip it on my belt. Now let's talk about the weather. Now I live in the South, and between Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Missouri, we get some nasty weather. And when the weather hits, you know, tornadoes, heavy thunderstorms, I mean, it just gets crazy. Having a good radio with you that can pick up the weather could be paramount to your safety. So the next thing I'm going to show you is what they call an emergency communicator right here. And this is one from a company from Zoleo. Now, if you never heard of emergency communicator, Garmin also makes one called the inReach, and there's a couple out there, but these things come in handy, especially if you're in the middle of nowhere or no one around, because this thing right here will work off a satellite, and you can program these to send text messages to someone's email address or cell phone in case something goes wrong. So how does these work? Well, there is a monthly service fee for these, and it depends on what kind of service you are looking for. Now, if I run into trouble out there, all I have to do is pop this SOS button switch right there and then hit that SOS button. Okay? These are programmed to your friends, family. You can program them up to 5 people. So one of the programs I've got is, hey, I am in trouble, send help. And they will be able to get the GPS coordinates off of this and send, contact the authorities to send help. Also, you can put it as, I am safe, where I'm at, I have no cell service, or I'm lost. So, I've got 5 people on my email list that these send messages to in case I get into trouble. Now, there was an instant where I knew some folks that were in Colorado. I believe they were at 12,000 feet. They were up on the mountain, and their trailer flipped and it fell on the side, which he couldn't get it back over because it was so heavy. It fell on the side of the door of the entry to the camper. It's one of those off-grid pull-behind, campers, the little small ones, not these big ones. And they were at, like I said, 12,000 feet. The sun was going down. It was getting cold. Their jackets and everything were inside of the camper along with their food. They were able to hit their emergency communicator, and it sent messages to people they know in Florida. Florida got it. They reached out. We sent out a group text. And I did have some friends in Texas that was headed their way to get them out of that situation. There was nothing to winch to up there. There was no rocks. There was no trees for the way where they were at. And so there were some friends from Texas, got a hold of some other friends in Colorado, and they were headed out to that location to help them out. Fortunately, 4 or 5 hours later, there was a vehicle that was passing to where they were at and was able to winch them back over, and they were able to make it back down the mountain without any issues. But if they didn't have this, they would have been SOL on top of the mountain until help arrived. But there are many other brands out there. Like I said, Garmin makes one called the inReach. They have other couple of, I don't know what the other ones are, but this one's a Zoleo. And I did purchase this one also with my own money. And they go for about, I want to say when I purchased this about a year or two ago, they were about $180 or $200. But where do you put a price on for your safety? Also, this is great here at the off-grid cabin, or This is also great on the homestead. You know, it does come with a belt clip or a strap that I can put, you know, on my belt if I'm out there in the woods cutting trees or doing some kind of work and something does happen here at the homestead, I could hit that SOS button. Now, there is no charge for them to send help using this button. So, you know, a lot of folks said, man, I don't know if I want to hit it because they're going to charge me. None of that comes into play. You just pay for the monthly service on these emergency communicators. All right, I had to switch sides. That chair I was sitting on was hurting. It's not exactly the most comfortable chair, and you know, when you get old like me, your butt doesn't have as much fat as it used to. But anyway, so those are the things that I carry with me in Sarge or here at the homestead. Now, another option that many of us have are these right here, cell phones. And let me tell you, there are certain features that you can get or apps that can also help people locate you when you are in trouble. Now, let me go back to, let me see, about 4 months ago, I was in Palo Duro Canyon in Canyon, Texas, the baby Grand Canyon of the, you know, the South, or the whatever you call it, you know, here in northern Texas. And I did have my cell phone on the hood of my Tacoma, and I was loading Hoku back up there, and I was going to go get something to eat out of the canyon and you know, go down the road, pick up some provisions. And I forgot that I had this on the hood of the vehicle. So as I drove away, I was about half a mile from my campsite going down in the canyon, and the cell phone had fell off the hood of my Tacoma. And when it hit, it activated the crash detection ground. It activated the crash detection and went to the nearest dispatch office, or the, you know, the law enforcement dispatcher closest to Canyon, Texas. Well, they went to dispatch. Dispatch kind of triangulated and got my coordinates of where the phone was, and they contacted the Park Service. And when they did that, I had, this is kind of embarrassing because I had all the park rangers on duty looking for me in the canyon. And they did find my phone. And one of the park rangers saw the picture on the phone and recognized me from the channel. Plus, he was able to call my mom using the emergency where you can set up just for emergency calls, and called my mom. And of course, you know, mom got worried, and she was all upset, saying, you know, he's driving a green Toyota, you know, please find him, I'm worried about him. And I guess, you know, so the park rangers were all out there looking for me. And as I was coming back down the road, one of them started flashing the lights at me. And I thought it was just one of my subscribers. So I just kind of waved and drove by, because the day prior when I checked in, one of the park rangers said that they recognized me from Overland Expo Pacific Northwest, and they were also a subscriber to the channel. So I just thought, you know, they were saying hello, and I waved, and I just drove by, and he whipped back around, got back to the campsite. He pulled in, and he picked up my cell phone and said, "Is this yours?" And I said, you know, I looked around, I was like, yeah, where did you find it? And he said it was down the road. Crash detection was activated. It went out. So long story short is the crash activation feature does work. And I had to call everybody and let them know I was okay, and, you know, apologize to the park rangers. I actually went up there and brought them some Semper Gumby decals. But, you know, kind of embarrassing, but that tells you that it does work. So, you know, if you have that feature on your phone, I highly recommend it. You know, if you're going to be traveling or going to be somewhere, to turn it on. That way people can be notified. And another option I have on this is I have a group of friends, about 15 of them, and a lot of them do overlanding. And I use a feature that they all use. It's called Life 360, and it's an app where you can download, and it gives your exact location where you're at, and it gives their location as well. So if something happens and you get cut off on the phone or you can't talk, they can see your exact location and they can come to your rescue or send somebody to your rescue. Now, everybody's like, well, I don't know, I don't want anybody to follow me all the time, knowing where I'm at. Well, you can turn on and turn off that feature. Now, I turn it on when I'm traveling. So I just wanted to show you the equipment or the gear I have that I carry with me when I'm boondocking, when I'm traveling, when I'm dispersed camping, and when I'm here at the homestead. And having the right gear is paramount. And they do have their pros and they do have their cons. And that's why I believe heavily on redundancy. I have more than one option that I could revert to, because, you know, when something fails, and, you know, it's going to fail, and it's going to fail at the wrong time. And, you know, having redundancy where I can go and shift to another piece of gear is pretty important to me. And, you know, that could be the difference between life and death. Another option what I'll be doing here in the next couple weeks, or maybe next week, or I meant couple days, is first aid stuff. I carry in my Tacoma, and I also have here in the cabin an IFAK, or an individual first aid kit. And, you know, it doesn't have to be the best of everything, but if you have the general gear in that, and I'll be covering that later on in the video coming up. It could be the difference of saving your life or saving someone else's. But before I sign off on this video, I want to tell you about one of the most important pieces of gear you could carry, either in your backpack, your go bag, your first aid kit, or even at the cabin, your homestead, or when you're traveling. This right here is a tourniquet. Okay, now I don't know if you ever seen one of these, but when I was with the police department, I always used to carry two. Okay, and this could be the difference of stopping the bleed, saving your life or someone else's. I'm gonna warn you right now and give you a tip: do not buy a tourniquet from Amazon. When you apply a tourniquet, you don't want it to break. We've seen cheap made tourniquets break while being applied in training. So if you're looking for a good tourniquet, I would also recommend checking out North American Rescue in South Carolina. And these things are about $30. I recommend, like I said, do not buy these on Amazon. Get them from North American Rescue, My Medic, or a reputable medical outfitter. I believe Dietrich out in South Carolina, and I'll post his link in the box below, Medical Outfitters, and they have these as well. I hope that this video was informative to you and you were able to take some of this as a takeaway to start thinking about what you could use at your off-grid property, homestead, traveling, dispersed camping, or, you know, being prepared is the key. And if you can do that, you already have won half the battle. So if you got any questions, pop them in the box below. I'll put the links and descriptions to these pieces of gear in there. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching the channel, and hopefully you can join us live on Tuesday, May 26th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on my other channel, Semper Gumby channel. And I have a guest coming, Whiskey Dog Outdoors, Chuck, a retired law enforcement officer as well, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So until the next video, this has been Off Grid Gumby out.